welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin.
I'm Tarsha.
And this is, of course, Conversations with the Crawleys, where we have conversations about faith, family, relationships, and recaps, reviews of some of our favorite shows and shows that we're checking out. So, if this is content that you enjoy, make sure you do the following. Hit that like button, request notifications,
and share.
And, of course, we will always see you in the comments. So, as we kind of mentioned, as we've kind of mentioned, there's a new show that we're checking out, and we want to know kind of what you thought about it. It's called Marry Me Now, and it's on the Oprah Winfrey Network, or OWN as we call it around here, or as they call themselves.
Trying to take credit.
Oprah, send me my ducats. All right. But the basis of this show, it's almost like put a ring on it, but without Dr. Nicole, and they just took it into their own hands and said, I'm going to decide to get married.
Right. Pretty much. It's interesting.
Yes.
Enough to watch, right?
Right.
So we started watching. They only do one couple at a time.
Right. So we don't have to go back and forth with 5 different couples learning their names.
Right. Right.
So we meet Mooch. Mm-hmm. I forgot what her real name is, but she goes by Mooch. Mm-hmm. And she is dating, or has been dating, Ken for the past 2 years. They're in Houston.
They're in Houston.
He thinks they're on a house hunting show. He's thinking he's about to get a house.
Well,
they're about to find a place to live together.
Right.
They want to move in.
Right. So he's thinking the next step is that in their relationship is that they're moving in together.
Right.
Well, she was like, you know what?
Let's go ahead
and get married.
All gas, no brakes. Let's get married.
And we'll find that place later.
Yeah.
So
they met via Facebook dating, and I didn't know Facebook dating was a thing.
Yes, they actually have within the site. It's like a dating app. Okay. Yeah, but it's supposed to be for 35 and older. I heard from our daughter. She's like, she was trying Facebook dating. She was like, this is not for the young. This is supposed to be for anyone over 35. Wow. So if you're over 35 and want to be looking for somebody,
check out Facebook dating, I guess.
Yes.
All right. So he's been married. She has not.
Correct. He was married for 8 years prior to the relationship. Don't mention if he had any kids, but she doesn't have any children. Right. So, and I'm assuming I don't think they gave her age. So she seemed like maybe she was in her early 30s, possibly.
Mid-30s, yeah. He looked like he might have been in his mid to late 30s.
Right.
So, they do at least have a relationship expert / therapist or whatever.
Well, she called herself a life coach.
Okay, so she's a relationship coach.
Yeah.
Who kind of helps to navigate and just asks. She's there almost like a facilitator. She's just asking questions. What if they say no? Why is this the good fit for you? Why is now the time?
Right.
So she's asking the questions that all of us are probably like, why?
Right, because at some point, a lot of times people do things because they feel it's romantic or they have these butterfly feelings. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of bringing her back down to reality.
Right.
And saying, if he is a traditional male or traditional in his thoughts, what happens if he does say no?
Right. It's not going to work out from his perspective.
Right. Yeah. And why do you feel the need to ask now and feel the need that we should get married right away? Mm-hmm. Because if you're on this show, that's what's supposed to happen.
Right.
So
her response, one of her responses is that she was in sales, so she knows how to turn a no into a yes.
Yeah, I was still very leery at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's just your perspective. I couldn't see myself asking someone to marry if I didn't know if you were ready to get married. Right. Because people say a lot of stuff, even when you're dating. And so not being sure, even though there should be conversations, right?
Right. I think from the way we approached it is that if we're thinking about marriage, we're having those conversations maybe before the actual full-on proposal.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Now, one thing that was kind of a red flag was she had not met his family.
Right. So it's been 2 years, and she says some of the reasons why it hadn't occurred was that maybe she was busy, and then maybe he had something come up.
Right.
So it seemed like they never crossed paths because of that. Mm-hmm. But my thing is, when we start talking about meeting family, there had to be some cases where you say, you know what? I'm going to drop what I'm doing.
Right.
And I need to meet your family.
If it's that serious.
If it's that serious, I'm going to have to drop something.
Right.
Because what we realize, well, at least I realize, and as we've talked to other couples and people are getting married, family dynamics are huge.
Matter a whole lot.
And you don't know a lot about the person until you meet their family.
Right.
And then you kind of understand where they're coming from, their kind of upbringing, what possibly their thought patterns are. Obviously, that person, you know, becomes their own person, but there is still a lot of influence from childhood up.
Absolutely.
How a child responds, or an adult responds as they get older, where you can learn. So for her to decide to take a step and not know the family, I would like to see at least a year after how well they're doing.
Right.
Because again, you're no longer dating and in separate homes. You're sharing a home and you're going to find out a whole lot.
A lot more than you thought.
Right.
So we do meet like sides of her family. We do meet like her mom and her grandmother. Right. She initially thought her grandmother might be a little nervous about it, but her grandmother was like, okay, cool. That's what you want to do.
Right.
You're in love. I see it.
Right.
Mom was okay based upon that.
Right.
And Mooch recognizes that she is kind of moving up his timeline.
Right.
The sister from Detroit who goes by the nickname Nooch.
Right. Very original from
Mooch. I would want to, Mooch and Nooch.
But
is a cousin named Pooch and we just
shut
start
up.
going through I don't get it. But we do meet the dad and the brother. Mm-hmm. The brother looked like T-Pain's illegitimate cousin. And the dad was an interesting character.
Well, he's a dad, right? From Detroit. So, I mean, I get he's asking her questions, right? He's really want to dig in, you know, why are you deciding to do this? Mm-hmm. I support you. Mm-hmm. And the brother is like, but what if he wanted to do this? What if he wanted to ask you?
Right.
And you're doing this ahead of time. What if he says no, right? Mm-hmm. So the brother's more like, I don't know about this, but you are sister. You're my sister.
Right.
And I really want to be a part of it. But, you know, what I did not get, if he says no, the dad's like, well, I'm going to take him out back. Well, that's a term meaning like you're going to handle it and get in his face.
Right. Like you're almost threatening him if he says no.
But I'm thinking about this. Bro, man didn't know. He didn't know he was getting married. He didn't know his girl was going to show up in a dress.
Let's flip it around.
So,
let's say it was the man proposing to the woman.
Right.
Would you expect for her mother, if I were doing that to you,
right?
Would you expect for my mother or sisters or whomever to be like, well, if she says no, we're going to take her out back and we're going to talk to her about it? You wouldn't do that. So it's like, yeah, you play that up for the camera or what have you, and you say that. But in all honesty, that's just, it's wrong thinking.
I would think so. You know, granted, she thought that her father was going to have a lot of traditional. Right. But he's like, look, y'all do crazy stuff now in this century than any other generation. Mm-hmm. I don't got time to be fighting y'all on that because there's so much other wild stuff going out here. You asking him to get married. And I know this has been a thing online and social media about should a woman ask and a woman shouldn't ask. And I mean, we could go back and forth about that. I think it should just be a mutual agreement because, again, it shouldn't be a surprise that someone's going to bring out a ring.
Right.
If you're dating intentionally to get married, you're having those conversations. Right. Because if I tell someone at the beginning of our relationship, I'm not interested in getting married, I'm just here to have fun. Right. And then you throw out that you want to propose to me because you're in love with me, you are going to get your feelings hurt.
Or if we fighting every other weekend, we break up to make up, to break up to make up, it might not be the best timing to, after we get back together last week, to propose. So those are all things that you have to figure out in a good relationship, kind of make those decisions based upon your specific situation. She does finally meet his sister and niece.
Correct.
They arranged that. again, under the pretense, under the guise of it's a home show that they're kind of
and they're
looking to move together, right?
And he's telling his sister and the niece that he's really close to that, hey, we're moving in together because that's serious, right?
Right.
And she's like, yeah.
So then we do see, because basically she's showing up to meet him in a wedding dress, fully prepared. And based upon his response, if he says yes, they're immediately like going to the chapel. He's going to get his tux that she's already picked out, because she picks out the rings for them.
She does everything.
She does everything. So it's like a micro engagement period and wedding.
Right.
So shout out to Vernisha from Ready to Love.
Yes.
We saw you.
We saw you doing hair, girl.
She was doing hair. She was the hairdresser for Mooch, and she was again on Ready to Love, the Houston edition. Just the basic Houston edition at the resort. Basically, long story short, she does meet up with him because they got him out on the street, kind of doing one of those interviews, scenes, whatever.
Right.
And the producer like kind of just backs out and almost takes off to a run.
She's like, okay, I'll be right back.
And he's like, okay. He turns around, he sees her, and he's like, what is this? So she proposes, and he says yes.
He says yes. And I found that interesting because it's almost like he's still like, what am I saying?
Right.
What am I saying yes to? And when they get into the Tahoe, she's like, so how are you feeling? He's like, I'm scared.
He's like, I'm a little afraid.
Because he knows what it is to be committed.
Right.
And try to make a relationship work. And again, a lot of times when you're a couple, you don't ask a lot of the hard questions up front. And if you don't have anyone to facilitate that, like going to premarital counseling, to bring up some of the things that you're still not on the same page about, deciding to say yes without really figuring those things out, could cause problems.
Because for me, I'm looking at the fact that he said yes. Okay, he's in love with her. He sees herself. But the thing that I'm curious about is that window where it's like you are saying yes and immediately going to get married. There's no time to have those premarital conversations, to have those thoughts and those conversations, because you're initially shifting from we're seriously dating to we're married. Right. And so then it's like all of the stuff that might come out, or you have discussions in the engagement period that might give you, maybe this isn't the right decision for us. All of those are out the window.
Or just even if you're on the same page, right? But what if I have a lease, you don't have a lease? Right. But I know
that's a lot of stuff to be worked out.
I know there is preparing to live together. So maybe that part is kind of figured out. Right. But it's like, what is his lifestyle when he's not with you? Right. And how do you work out those mechanics? How much debt are you actually in? Did you have those?
All of these are great questions.
How much alimony are you paying? Yep. So I guess those are the things that you would need to determine. Do you have any deal breakers about chores and different stuff? Yep. None of that is coming out. Right. Only thing we know is I'm going to have your legal name and hopefully no life insurance right away. So
yes, they did get married. He did walk down the aisle. She walked down with her dad. Said yes. They are together in Houston. So we'll see.
Now, okay, for yourself being a male, how much involvement would you want to be in the preparation of picking the ring or the ceremony part? Instead of, are you like, woo, this is not on my dime? Because that's what the mother was saying. The mother was like, I didn't have to decide anything. I had to show up for the fitting, but someone else had the bill. Yeah. So
I think I didn't want to be extremely involved. I wanted to have some input, but for me, it was like, your dress was your dress. We went and we found rings, right? There was a song that I wanted you to come into just because that was a song that I liked. But other than that, it was just kind of like, okay, Yeah, the color, you brought me colors. I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. So it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like I had to have every detail down.
And you didn't want a cummerbund.
Yeah, and I did not want to come back.
You know, it's that thing that used to go around the men's way.
I wanted my tux to be what I wanted, right? But for me, it was just like I wanted to be involved, but not. I didn't have to have my hands in everything and be so granular with it that I knew every detail of it. It was just like, for me, it was like I'm more concerned about the life afterwards than I was for that day. That's just me.
So there's supposed to be another episode that comes on earlier than the one that the first episode came on at.
I don't know what y'all
midnight.
I don't think Owen likes the West Coast because some of the reason our stuff come out like the next day is because they be putting it out real late for us on the West Coast. But listen, we'll see how the season goes.
Yeah.
I've said there's going to have to be some relationships that they say no.
Yeah, because my prediction, this won't last.
No.
I mean, it's just like...
And I think it's based off... I think there's other versions of this in other countries where it might be more... dramatic, more wow. Breaking taboos and breaking cultures and things of that nature.
That's probably true.
I think this show may last a season. I don't know that it's going to last the entire time. We'll see. We'll see.
Y'all tell us.
Yep. But that's it for this review. Let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hit that like, request notifications.
And share.
And of course, we'll see you next time. Have a great one. Be blessed.